Welcome to EI Cafe with Azim, in which he reflects on key aspects of life and business through the lens of emotional intelligence. You will learn how emotional intelligence can be used for your success in both personal and professional lives. The podcasts cover topics on leadership, collaboration, culture, building a positive mindset, and even raising kids. You will hear key life lessons and tips from the most prominent personalities, business leaders, entrepreneurs, EI practitioners, and executive coaches from around the world. So sit back, relax with a cup of coffee as we get into today's show, EI Cafe with Azim.
In the digital age, parenting requires a balance of communication, education, and setting boundaries. Parents should encourage open dialogue about online activities, educate children about digital safety, and establish clear rules for screen time. Leading by example is crucial. As parents, we play a key role in modeling responsible digital behavior. By taking a proactive approach, parents can help their children navigate the digital world safely and responsibly. Now, the question lies in how can we do navigate parenting in this digital era? A very warm welcome to the show. This is EI Cafe with Azim, and I'm your host, Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist, a legacy display facilitator, ICF certified PCC level coach, an emotional culture and emotionally intelligent practitioner. I'm one of the lead facilitators at Luminary Learning Solution. So today topic is going to be a little bit different, not in a business context. It's going to be more on a parenting. So to have this conversation, I do have a very good resource person, and he's been part of an amazing organization, which is part of this particular season of EI, partner of EI Cafe with Azim in season 10. Let me introduce him, a dynamic, results-oriented leader with a track record of performance in high-paced, medium, large organization. He is an accomplished academic with Masters in Business Administration from the University of West Sydney, a PhD in Organizational Behavior from the University of Arizona Phoenix, and a Master in Sustainability from University of Cambridge. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Dr. Gehan De Soysa, Chairman and CEO of Threadworks and Director, Parenthrive.
Thanks, Thank you.
So, Dr. Gehan, welcome to the cafe.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. Dr. Gehan, we did the introduction is about digital era and the parenting. Now, this has been a lot of roller coaster ride for a lot of parents. And me being a parent, having two kids, 10 and 5, it has been amazing to see how parenting has been evolved. Me being as a child and my father how treating, and how being me a father and how the transformation has been. So I thought, why not educate our audience and viewers on this parenting piece in the digital era? So that's the whole piece what we're going to talk. To start off, Dr. Gyan, I'm just curious to know, like, why this whole piece of parenting has been so much important in this particular era. What is your thought?
So I think let me set the background to it. So we're still in a stage of migration, right? So most of us have been parented offline. Most of our parents haven't parented, have at least have had to parent us online. So this is a huge gap that we're trying to bridge right now, because we usually do things what we've seen before. So we've seen our parents only parenting us offline, and now this is new thing that we are treading on. So this is very important, because I think if you still take the parents who are becoming parents, very few of them would have seen their parents parenting them online. So
Mm.
it's which that we need to basically a gap that we need to bridge
Right.
when it comes to parenting in today's terms.
So is
Yeah,
that mean that parenting is evolving with the whole time?
absolutely. I think now we are required. So even if I now my kids are 18 and 16. So it's somewhere in the middle that we had to start becoming online parents, especially with COVID, right? Because I rewind to maybe 4 years ago, our kids were not given digital devices in terms of smartphones. Yes, they
Mm.
did have iPads and stuff like that. It was so much easier to control them at that
Mm.
point of time, right?
Mm.
So now it's definitely evolving, and the new generation of parents will have to learn how they can parent their kids offline as well as online. So it's an important set of competencies that you need to develop.
Mm. So I do understand on the context what you're trying to say is like, um, yeah, COVID has been a big transition, right? We never ever thought like kid need to sit in front of a computer and got schooling
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
use the
Yeah.
whole piece. I don't know. My thought, right? Schools also have got used to it and they're saying, okay, get this printout done and that this and get the whole piece done at home and bring. That's a different story. But then again, the question lies in like parents, how much they should be aware about the technology, because now technology has been going crazy, right? Daily basis has been evolving. There are certain things like my son or daughter just trying to feel that they come up with various ideas which I have not gone through, even though
Correct.
I'm with the digital. Now, how much of a parent should be aware about the digital revolution coming in?
Well, I think they need to keep abreast with the developments, but I think in controlling this entire aspect, we need to go back to our drawing boards and do the basics properly. So as with anything, I mean, it can be outdoor activities, it can be the food that they eat, how much of junk food that they are allowed, right? Um, so there are certain key things that has not changed,
Mm.
right? That and parenting is a very unique thing where it's a very personal decision to the two parents who are parenting those two kids. So according to the way they've grown up, according to the surroundings that they are raising these kids up, it can vary. But I think there are some ground rules that if you master, you
Mm.
should be able to navigate yourself through this digital age, right?
Right.
So some of that, I don't know whether I'm preempting this area, but one of the things that you need to establish, as with anything with kids, is making sure that you set the rules right, you set the boundaries. And I think one of the most important things as parents we could do is there has to be cohesion between the parents when they're setting these boundaries. So it's very difficult to be good cop, bad cop, right? I mean, you can navigate through being a good cop and a bad cop, but within the boundaries of certain rules. See, what happened with COVID is that earlier they were not mandated to use these smart devices, right? So now, even now, like what you said, there'll be a WhatsApp message at like 10 o'clock in the night saying, bring these books or, take this print out for school. So there is a there is a bit of an issue because they are supposed to be reading these messages, and as parents you don't want them to be up beyond a particular time,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So it's not easy, but if you establish certain guidelines for you to navigate through, to reap the benefits of the digital age as well as, keep away from the negatives, I think you'll do well.
Right. I think it's clearly understood. Yeah, it's in my even my wife handles the whole telegram from the school, and then suddenly 10 o'clock they said bring that, and suddenly we have to
Right.
rush whole thing and piece. So that's a so before I got to boundaries, let me ask this question, and this is I think many parents and many people they would love to hear from you is now what age what age should kids get absorbed with the digital devices, and number two, um, what's is it good? Let's ask that, because what we were like, we have seen like the screen time is not good, either too much of screen time or playing these games like Candy Crush or any other thing. Does it help the child to develop the brain cells, or is it going to really harm child development? But I know the face like how the whole piece of brain cell works. But then again, as a parent, now we have a fear like my child will get corrupted, or she get, or he or she get lose the focus when they get attached too much to the digital device, especially the mobile phone or the tab or the iPad. What's your thought?
So I think as with anything, there is a good with the bad, and unfortunately, science is also evolving. We know in terms of medicine, nutrition, right? Suddenly, science will come and say that eggs are good. Suddenly, science will come and say that the egg yolk has cholesterol that can't be burnt
Mm.
out. So science is also indecisive in pointing towards a definitive answer. As with most things, I think too much of everything is good for nothing. So we need to go on that premise. And yes, there is a definite advantage that you can harness out of, the digitalization. Kids being abreast with, technology, because, we need to face it that uh, in this era, for you need to raise a tech savvy kid. You can't like keep them in the ice age and suddenly expect them to get into it because everyone is using it for education, right? So you can't completely keep them away from it and expect them to be as developed as the other kids, right? But again, as with anything, there are limits. You know, too much of everything will only bring disaster. So as a parent, you need to know where you draw the boundaries, right? Yes, there are a lot of advantages of being a digitally enabled child, right? Yes, there is some research that shows that there is cognitive development because of all the information that they are
Processing.
exposed to.
Yeah.
It improves their critical thinking, out of the box thinking, right? So all those benefits are there. But again, at the end of the spectrum, if they are overexposed, there could be a lot of negatives that come out of it. So as parents, I think what we can do is make sure that we are able to harness the benefits and try to keep them away from the negatives that happen, right? So for that, I mean, there are so many things you should do. As I told you earlier, I mean, one thing is both the parents together, setting clear rules. So these things have to be done not when they're like 17 years old, but as young as possible. And yes, just to answer your question, maybe it's not a very good idea to expose your kids maybe before 1.5 or 1 year in front of digital devices, because they need to be able to explore the world around them as well, right? So maybe that's something that a personal decision that the parents need to take, because um, a lot of us parents use digital devices as our piece in the pocket, right? As soon as we have a conversation or we get a call, we shove it down their throat, and 2 hours have passed and they're still on the digital devices.
Mm.
So let's say, for example, if you're trying to feed the kids something, right? Every feeding time, out come the devices, and it becomes excessive. So as parents, we need to know where we actually, draw the boundaries. That's very important. Second thing, I think there's no substitute to this. Parents have to engage in meaningful conversations with kids. So that's something that, in our fast-paced life today, that we kind of compromise, which we need to, stop and really think about it, because most of the time, let's say as a father, I come from work extremely tired. Your kid comes and talks to you about the same thing he's spoken to you for the millionth time, right?
Mm.
And doesn't revert. But what we need to realize is, for that child, what he is bringing on the table to discuss with you is extremely important to him. So
Yeah.
you need to, at that time think, okay, this is something that I'm, sowing to reap the benefits at a later stage, and actually engage in those conversations with
Mm.
them.
Mm,
Because the moment basically shove them aside and say, they might be talking about some animal or a toy or some something really doesn't revert with you when you're really tired after
mm,
work. But those are the things that you need to engage them in conversations. Physical activity, a lot of us, through when we were kids,
yeah.
our parents were fighting to keep us off the streets, right?
Keep
So
inside the
those were
house, stay inside the house.
yeah, exactly. So to come back on time, so those are the things that we need to get them involved in, sports, singing, maybe a bit of drama, I don't know, ballet, dancing, right? Have a balance of everything so that, they get to
Mm,
engage in in multiple activities that actually, develops their, skills as well.
mm,
Right.
mm,
So those are things that we need to do. And also I think another important thing is leading by example. You can't tell your kid not to be on the digital device, and you can't be on the digital device in front of their eyes 24/7. Right.
mm,
So there has to be times, maybe during dinner or some time where you say, look, no digital devices. We sit and we talk. And develop that culture when they're very small.
mm. So, Dr. Gan, I think you raised a wonderful connection to the question I have in mind. The meaning of conversation, to have this conversation with children. Now, why I asked those two questions, I have seen parents like, as you said, they want to feed the kid, or like if they are like troubling when they're out, they just pull the iPad or the phone, just put the nursery rhyme and just keep in front of them. That's it. And that they think that it's a good thing to do. I don't know whether it's a good or bad thing, but then again, because of that, do you see an emotional disconnection between children and the parent? Or do they get attached to the digital device rather than the parent? Is that something happens there?
Yeah, see, now the good thing about the digital devices is that you have, a sea of information encapsulated in nice audio and visual format where the kid absorbs. So a nursery rhyme that our parents found it very difficult to teach us, is absorbed by them
Mm,
at a much faster rate.
mm,
But I think if it's excessive, right, that becomes a problem. Now, for example, let me give you this example. Now we are on WhatsApp, we are on Facebook, Instagram, right? And we keep in touch with our friends, right?
yeah.
So when you're excessively doing that at a very young age, apart from now, one can argue that you're developing your communication skills. But are you developing your communication skills when you're in their face, right?
Mm,
When you meet up with someone, excessively being on these digital devices may lead you to be very uncomfortable face to face,
yeah.
right? So these are things that we need to, that's why I said, we need to get our kids involved in multiple activities, expose them. I know parents go through a lot feeding kids, right? I mean, we've gone through a lot feeding kids, it's always been a struggle, but it's only for a few years, right? That you need to, basically,
Come up with
put this
different
effort. Yeah,
mechanisms.
right. Mechanisms to, get them to eat, expose them to, the world outside. So if you keep on changing these activities, right, they will not only be on these digital
Mm,
devices.
mm,
And yes, an excessive amount of screen time and access to digital devices will have that, disconnect between the kids and the parents, and they'll be
mm.
more connected to, these digital devices.
So I think that's very much clear. Let me come to this aspect of parenting. I know you have
Let
two
me let
teenage.
me add
Yeah.
another thing which I've seen quite a lot. Um, so kid develops quite rapidly when they're exposed to digital devices. But what we need to understand, it's a one-way communication.
Mm,
It's not a two-way communication. It's basically everything coming into them, but the communication is basically touch-based.
right.
They are not verbalizing. So as a result, you might see kids developing speech late. There might be speech
Right.
delays. So there might be certain other, sensory issues that pop up because of excessive, I need to say that excessive, exposure to digital devices.
Mm.
No, I think a balanced amount would be okay,
Yeah.
but we don't want a problem occurring,
Right.
right, as a result of overexposure.
Right. So I think that's really important aspect. Like I've seen that a lot of kids, let's say the word addiction, excessive is getting into it. And sometimes parents struggle to take off the whole device from the hand, and they start becoming showcasing different behaviors,
Yeah,
troublesome behaviors that's been part of it, and it is a bad sign. On that note, Dr. Gyan, I have a question on this particular line. We talked about children. Let's uh, um young age. Let's talk about teenagers. I know you have two teenage kids. You just mentioned about it. How do you navigate this particular category? The teenage. I know it's a different, right? Me and you has also gone through this particular day. Luckily, we didn't have devices like this. Now, how this can be navigated? This particular generation of teenagers.
yeah. So the good thing is that the teenagers today, we've raised as toddlers, and they've been exposed to digital devices, right? So I can, as I told you, it's a very personal thing. Parenting is becomes very personal. Like, what school you need to put your kid to. It's a very personal, decision. So one thing, so what I can advise is through my own personal experience, setting the rules. And so we are on Apple devices. So I have screen time, family sharing. So it was established right from the start that after 9 o'clock, there's no screen time.
Mhm.
Absolutely none. All their devices are, locked. Yes, they can make a phone call, right, in an emergency, but we've established that fact that after 9 o'clock, there's absolutely nothing. And so we had to take a hard decision, even informing school, because they are, they are in leadership roles in school.
Mm.
And we had to tell school themselves that after 9 o'clock, any message sent after 9 is not reasonable, right? It's not a reasonable time to message a kid, especially by teachers, because we've found that teachers even message at 11 o'clock in the night and expect
Oh.
these kids to, bring things early morning. So we've established that. I think as we, now my son is sitting for his final A2. Even when he was doing A1, sorry, O levels, his classmates knew that he always had downtime, right? So they tend to, accept the fact
Mm.
that they are growing up within certain boundaries, right? So there are, I mean, there are, I'm sure even for Androids, there are enough and more easily accessible programs that you can help you navigate through this. So it's basically setting those boundaries. And also another thing I need to tell, I mean, it's very important that as they grow bigger, we need to, cut down the controls that we've given them, because at the end of the day, after 18, after 21, they're out there on their own, and we need to make sure that they're ready to take the
Mm.
responsibility on their own. So now
Yeah.
my son, who's doing A levels, right, is not under downtime. That's his lookout. So we've taught them maybe up to about 16, 17, and after a particular point, you need to let them go and believe that what you've done in their formative years will hold in good stead.
I think that preparation is a must. That's what you're
Yeah,
trying to say. Like you create that particular boundaries, screen time, downtime, and create that particular habit through the process. So when they become teenage and it's ready to flee, then you create that environment for them to really understand this why the process has been, and I think that's what it.
At Parenthrive, we embrace parenthood together. Join us to navigate the joys and challenges of raising children through connecting with the community. As parents, we connect. As parents, we share. As parents, we learn and grow. Join us at Parenthrive to start your empowered journey towards parenting.
So, Dr. Gan, let's come to the whole piece, like the role of parent tribe. You play a vital role in the parent tribe community. What does this particular community does in terms of parenting in this such particular space? What does it services? What are
Yeah,
things
so
parent tribe does?
yeah, so I think the whole idea about Parenthrive is to be a support group for parents. So, like, when we have an illness, we go to a doctor, but that's when we have an illness, right? But you go to a a doctor who looks at that nutrition, so that you don't have illnesses, later on. So these are support group that provides, kids go through a lot. Parents don't have time. Also, what we've understood is that sometimes you feel that your kid is not quite normal. Uh, you know.
Mm,
Hyperactive and all that. But when you talk to other parents, you tend to realize, no, it's not my kid. Everyone is like that, right?
mm,
So there are certain things a support group can provide. Also, what we do is so providing that support group, to talk about speech delays, talk about nutrition, talk about education, what kind of school will, help your kid, right? So now we have maybe 10 top 10 schools. Not every kid can get into these top 10
mm.
schools,
Yeah.
right? Let's say even if you do have the opportunity to say, of sending them to each of those schools, you need to decide on a school that's going to suit you, your culture, the way you want your kids raised, right? Um, so for, I mean, it's not fair for me to give names and examples, so I'll
Yeah,
stay out
yeah,
of it.
absolutely.
Yeah, so it needs to be, so this is a group that gives support. And also, I think one thing that Parent Thrive does provide is it provides the expert, knowledge, the information that parents need to get, because there are certain parents who actively search for information.
Mm,
For
mm,
example, let's say, for example, you feel that your kid is having a speech delay. Now, that speech delay can be completely normal, or could be because of your kid being in a autistic spectrum.
mm.
So now, as soon as you say autism, everyone gets like,
Yeah,
panicked.
panicked.
But there's nothing to panic about, because there are things that you can do to make sure that your kid, uh, reverses some of those behavior. Now, for
Mm,
example, when we were small, I'm sure half of us were autistic or whatever, right? But we were told by our teachers that they're hyperactive.
correct.
So back then we were hyperactive, but now we are branding our kids as autistic and, ADHD and,
ADHD or
various
dyslexia or
different things,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, these are the things that parents need support in, right? So even if Parent Thrive is around supporting parents, creating a supportive environment
Mm,
for
mm,
parents,
mm.
right? And making sure that, you're better equipped to
Yeah,
be a better parent
yeah,
for your kids, right? So it's not one rule suits all, but you
absolutely.
can be a and also the expert knowledge that Parent Thrive does provide in terms of medical experts, nutritionalists, education experts, different various
Mm, mm.
types of doctors who come and speak. So this is a support that we are trying to provide, and I feel that in a very fast changing environment, it's something that parents do need.
Absolutely. I think it's not only in terms of parenting per se. So I think in terms of pre-pregnancy, it's a becoming new parent, like they have
Yeah,
not gone through the process. I think there's
yeah,
a certain
exactly.
area of pre-pregnancy,
Yeah,
pregnancy, and
yeah,
pregnancy also. That's certain things, especially the mother goes through certain changes and
correct,
behavioral and then
correct.
physical. So I think there
Yeah,
are a lot of guideline parent tribe provides
yeah,
on that particular note. And of course, not to mention, forget to mention that there are a lot of resources available on their website. Also, I will put all the details on the podcast note where you can access it, join the community, and you can contribute also, right, Doctor? You can
yeah,
contribute as a
absolutely.
parent.
So the other thing that we've looked at is, you have a problem, you go on Google, right?
Mm,
So you have to, decipher between so many conflicting ideas, right? And you really don't know what is true, what is not,
mm,
right? And usually on most of the parenting issues now, even we would have gone to our parents. There are certain things now through the last century, the way parenting changed was extremely slow. So
Mm,
through the 1700s, 1800s, the 1900s, things really didn't change a lot. But with digitalization, things are rapidly changing, right? And at certain times, for example, you take diapering. Now our parents didn't know about diapering. Any child who grew up in Sri Lanka, let's say in the 80s and 90s, most probably were never put on in diapers,
mm,
right? So your parents don't know about diapering. So something as simple as that, right?
yeah.
So when you're basically, exposed to that, you need some kind of advice, right?
Mm,
So that's a very simple area that I
yeah.
spoke about.
Yeah.
So that's the support that Parenthrive does provide. And as you said, there are a lot of resources available online,
Yeah.
a lot of conversations with medical professionals, right, to guide you through the process.
I think this is a very much need of the hour, and I think my responsibility also for getting into this whole piece of parent right to just to make sure that it promotes and share the knowledge. There's something like that in Sri Lanka you can connect. I think, and there's no limit. We can go global because we have a lovely audience throughout the world, so they can really absorb. So, Dr. Gyan, are you ready for the rapid fire round? So it's going to be really interesting. Don't worry, don't panic. It's going to be really fun. We're going to just have a little bit of a fun time. So this is the rapid fire round with Dr. Gehan. So, Dr. Gehan, your first question would be, what is one thing you loved about your childhood in just 2 sentences?
I think the freedom to do anything that we wanted.
Right.
I think that's something that I liked about my childhood.
Right. Okay. So, what's a quick technique we can teach kids about staying safe on the internet? A tip.
I think the only tip that I can think of is staying connected to your parents. Because
Okay.
we need to have that open conversation with our kids. I mean,
Right.
one thing I think that we need to continually tell them is however big the problem is, you're always there.
Right. So, Dr. Gyan, your question number 3, have you ever been addicted in a digital device to something?
Well, thankfully, because we were not exposed as teenagers, luckily, no.
Luckily, no, right? Okay. So, last one. What's one easy thing parents can do to show good tech habits to their children? What's one easy thing parents can do to show good tech habits?
Leading by example, I think.
Leading by example.
I know that it's mandatory for parents to be on digital devices, but have those time offs in front of their kids.
Right. So, Dr. Gyan, one last key takeaway for our audience and viewers. What would be one message you want to share with the listeners and the viewers on this particular episode? Your last comment.
Yeah, so don't stay away from digital devices, right? And have this Amish mentality that you're going to protect your kid from all digital advances. Don't do that, because you need to raise a tech savvy kid. But in that, with everything else with your kid, have limits, and make sure that you establish those limits and they know what those limits are. So as they grow older, that they will have those limits for themselves.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the time what we have for today. My guest for today is Dr. Gehan De Soysa, Director Parenthrive, as well as he's a Chairman and CEO of Threadworks. Dr. Gehan, thank you very much for your time and sharing that immense knowledge. I know it's a huge topic, huge area, but we try to concise into a short, limited area. Once again, thank you very much for your valuable time and have a great day.
Thanks, Azim, and thanks for having me today. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining yet another successful episode of EI Cafe with Azim. We appreciate your time and invite you to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss out on the next episode. Write a review and even rate it if you please. You can also follow Azim Sahir on social media. We would also love to hear from you on what topics you'd like us to cover and even who you'd like us to invite to the show. We wish you well until we meet again on another episode of EI Cafe with Azim.